you. Appreciate you.
That was great. Thank you. All
I you.
right, everybody, welcome. I want to say welcome, Stephen Litman. He's agreed to join us this morning. And Stephen, just to give you a little background about why we're here, many of us used to jump on a 6 a.m. call twice a week. And that 6 a.m. call got bumped down to just once a week and took the month of July off. And many of us didn't know what to do with our mornings suddenly. So we agreed to meet at least one day in July and ended up deciding that we needed to keep it going a little bit. So John and I started this group of just we can only commit to once a month. So we start off the first Thursday of the month. That's been our goal so far. Things could be evolving, but that's where we are right now. And we had somebody volunteer to join us, and so we have asked a different speaker to join us every time, and I so appreciated you. So everybody, Stephen joined the Danville office a couple of weeks ago, I think, and he has his own company called CRM Refresh, and he started out with Urban Compass employee.
Which employee number were you, Stephen? Do you know? Do you remember?
Uh, Sorry, she cut out there for a second. I think I was 16 or
Oh my
17, something
gosh.
something like that.
Wow.
So tell us, Stephen, a little bit about what that was like, because most of us joined in, I think the earliest here, well, I guess I really don't know. I think there's a good portion of us that joined in 2018. Um, but what was Urban Compass like? And who else was there? Who were the 17 other people there with you? And then tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now. I know, this company has been a passion project of yours that's no longer really a project, right? It's a full business, but it's not your primary business. So if you can tell us just a little bit from the beginning, would be great.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for having me. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. And again, it's an honor to be here. It's almost I don't know. I don't even know why I would be a guest speaker. I'd come to just join and hang out with you guys, but I'm grateful to be here nonetheless, and I'm hopeful to learn everybody else's story as you kind of have to sit through mine. So started with Compass, Urban Compass, as Tanya said. It was a very different experience. We had a completely different business model. The Robert Refkin that we all know and love was not the same Robert Refkin. He always had that smile. He always had that same sort of like very bubbly energy and excitement that is sort of infectious, and I think that we all love. But he is a master learner, I would say, and whenever he kind of sets his sights on learning how to do something well, I think he just excels beyond a human's capacity sometimes. But yeah, we
See that.
started.
Yes.
We started, and it was we all had red backpacks that I still have to this day, and it's hanging up in my office at home. We at that stage of my life, probably not the story I would tell later in the memoirs that nobody would read, but I cared about the fact that we had a stocked kitchen, and I was in my early 20s, and there was beer in the office, and we would get called in sometimes, and they would have, don't tell them, it's not being recorded. Oh, this is being recorded. I got to be careful. But we would get called in sometimes, and we'd work all night, and it was just really high octane, sort of build it as you're flying it type of a world, and as you'd expect. To answer your other question of who was there, so 4 months into the company, they changed it from Urban Compass to Compass, and they changed business models. And when they did that, they almost let go of like 75% of the staff. And so my entire department, I was brought on as a neighborhood specialist, which really was like a licensed a salaried realtor. That went away entirely. And then they were like, okay, we're gonna get rid of these people and keep basically the engineers, and 2 or 3 product people. So I'm trying to think. Gordon Golub was obviously there. Who else is still there? You guys know Ugo? Does anyone know Ugo, the engineer? You know Ugo Musa? Okay, yeah. Ugo was there. Rob Lehman had not shown up yet. Rory had not shown up yet. In fact, my Rory story, for any of you on this call, and I don't think I look a thing like him. He's far more handsome. But my little Rory story is that, the day he got interviewed, I ran into Robert Refkin's office and I said, "You can't hire this guy." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Well, because he's going to be my boss and everybody's going to say I look like him." And Robert said, "Get out of my office," right? And I only tell you that to say that every office that I've been into for a decade plus after, there's always been someone without fail that says, "You know who you look like?" And I'm like, "No, I have no idea. Who do I look like?" So anyway.
Well, truth be said, I said that to you as well. So everybody type me in the chat if you think Rory looks like Stephen.
Yeah, type it in.
Anyway, but so I'll pause there. But basically, it was all passion. It was a bunch of guys who really wanted to make a change in real estate, who frankly didn't really know that much about real estate. I think Gordon Golub was absolutely crucial in understanding the landscape in New York City, and he had come. I know I see Elizabeth's from New York City, and I'm sure there's several others here, but he had come from City Habitats, and it had some experience in that. But City Habitats, although it was a sales business as well, was kind of actually more of a rental business. And then they transitioned and brought on some really amazing people. And I remember the day I was working for Jason Saft. I don't know if anybody knows Jason, but Jason's the best, like just absolutely amazing. He's got a company called Stage to Sell. I think I was probably his worst team member ever. But he put up with me for a long time, and we became great friends. But the day that Leonard Steinberg came to the company, he sent me a text and said, "This whole thing is about to change," and change it did. After Leonard came, we brought on a lot of amazing realtors. People started saying, "Oh, I've heard of that thing, that Compass thing. What is that?" And before you know it, it was all over the country.
Great. So
wow.
You also worked with Tony Robbins, right, Stephen?
Yep. So you guys are going
I want to hear
get
some good Tony Robbins stories that you had with him.
Yeah, so you're going to get the real deal from me here. As you know, as you probably had to sit through, we get sold a lot of stuff as realtors. There's always someone. And there was a gentleman who told me a little bit about Tony Robbins as I was, working in real estate. I worked in real estate, just to be clear, I worked in real estate for about a year, maybe a little bit more than that. No, I'm sorry, about 2 years. And then I transitioned over to the business development side on Compass, or for Compass, excuse me. And that's where I was pretty much for the entirety of my time at Compass, better part of a decade. So in any event, always been very, into being motivated and into being enthusiastic. And so I kind of heard about Tony and whatnot, and gone with a couple of Compass agents to an event. And then time went on, fast track a couple years. I really wanted to be hired for the role that, frankly, and I usually tell this story to make it a little bit more glamorous, so you guys are getting the real deal. I really wanted to be hired for the role of an SGM. If you're familiar with that, that's a growth manager. That's what I ended up becoming at some point. But we had just expanded into Boston and DC, and I really wanted to be the guy that got to, go spread the good word and tell people about Compass, and they wouldn't hire me. They kept bringing in just really, really great people who had amazing experience elsewhere, more than I did, and they just kept doing that. So just the way it kind of panned out, I ended up working with Tony and traveling around the country for a couple of years. And in that time, my job really was to, if you, let's say, had a business, you'd been a Tony Robbins fan or a former client, you had 50 or more employees, I would come in and basically try to be a mini Tony. I used to say I was travel size for your convenience. But I would come in and be a mini Tony and try to get people to really like our brand and hopefully engage in the seminars and in the coaching and whatnot. It moved me around the country every 3 months. So definitely a fun young man's job, not something that I think you want to do for too long of a time. And I just, called Robert Reskin back 3 years later and said, look, I'm not asking you for a job here. I respect your network. I respect your opinion. And, who do you know that I can speak to that's really doing something interesting? By that point in time, I had discovered Orange County, California. And as a Philly guy originally, I fell in love. Go Birds, love Philly, but Orange County is not Philly. So in any event, I said, look, who do you know out here that I can work with? And he said, us. And so that's how that transpired. I came back and actually got hired as a growth manager and opened several of the offices here in Orange County, and brought on some really amazing agents that I'm really proud to say are still friends to this day.
Tanya, with Stephen moving from the East Coast to the which coast?
The best coast. Sorry, Stephen, it's a common joke here.
I love it. I love it.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. So you worked for Compass in Orange County for a few years.
Yep.
How long were you with us while you were down there?
I was there for probably about 3.5, 4 years. And yeah, we when I arrived in Orange County, I think we had just a handful of agents, maybe 20. By the time I left, we had over 400.
Oh, wow.
If not more. Yeah, I left right after the company went public. And so I wanted to follow in John Jenkins' footsteps and become a financial planner. And so, it's always been a passion of mine ever since I was a little boy.
So are you saying that when Compass stock dropped, it's because you left? Is that what we're hearing? Is that what we're hearing, Stephen?
It's funny now. It wasn't funny then. But I we joke in my family and amongst my close friends about the time that I was rich for a second. And so it was one of those things that the company went public, and right around that time, it's weird how the universe kind of does this, right? I'm sure everybody on this call has a story just like this, but the company went public, and right around that time, I'm in a grocery store and I get a phone call, and my father says, don't be alarmed, which naturally, right? That's everybody then gets alarmed, and said, yeah, exactly. Robert Hughes just did exactly what I did internally. So he said, don't be alarmed, but I've been laying in a parking lot for 45 minutes and I can't get up. And I'm like,
oof.
Cool. What's your plan? You just going to stay there forever, or what's going on? And he basically said that he had, twinged something in his back and he couldn't get up. And so to make the story, still won't be short, but shorter, got on the next plane, went out to visit him. He was in Florida at the time. And really, it was one of those things where all of my attention for about 6 months had to go to him, and getting him back on his feet and whatnot. And he's still with us, thank God. He's in good health, I suppose. He kind of went from being a 70, maybe 70, I don't know what he was at the time, 74-year-old who acted like a 47-year-old, right? He was living in his condo in Boca and having a good time and going to the track and, just having a ball, to being, he's now 78. He lives in assisted living and just kind of on a different chapter in his life. So we did that transition. And as I was going through that transition, I realized there was a lot in that chapter that he had not prepared for. So I got to learn sort of the hard way of what that looks like. That piqued my interest. And at the same time, as John told us, and as I'm sure we all experienced, the Compass stock was plummeting, right? So just got a firsthand experience of what that looks like if you don't know what you're doing and you don't seek out good advice. And I just kind of, I think we scratch our own itches, right? So I kind of realized hey, I need to smarten up. I need to learn a little bit, and I need to seek advice, and then turn that around and said, I'd really love to be that person for someone else's family so that they don't have to go through kind of what I went through. And that's kind of where we are today.
I know,
Wow.
I know everyone was freaking out, but all the other companies, the real estate companies, they all dropped. I mean, but I threw a lot more money in when it dropped. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, it's just long term. I believe in this company and it's there for 30 years now when my daughter's older, you know? So that's great.
Absolutely. I think, now looking back, it's one of those things where, it's you're in a great position with everything that's going on. I don't want to take the conversation too far afield, but with everything that's going on with Clear Cooperation and MLS and all the things that Robert's been talking about, and just, our main competition really is Zillow, right? So just with what's happening there in the background, you guys are in a phenomenal position, and I'm still a stockholder, so we're all in it together. But yeah, it was just one of those things where the Fed decided to raise rates at an unprecedented level, and the market pretty much decided overnight that if you're not a profitable and dividend-paying company, we're gonna hammer your stock. So that's kind of how that went.
So a little bit back to Tony Robbins, Stephen.
Sure.
Did you ever do the fire walk with your bare feet?
Only about 37 times, something like that.
No, serious. Really? Really?
Mhm.
Good for you, man.
Wow.
Has anyone else on this call done that?
Type me in the chat if you've been through a Tony Robbins
Kelly's
firewalk.
got her hand up.
Who is?
Nice.
Jeannie, unmute. I want to hear it quickly. Here.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's mind over matter.
Was it scary, that first step?
It's always scary. You feel like dying.
Or you're just, or Nomita's done it too. You got your hand raised. I mean, but you're
7
probably psyched
times,
up. Other people
Nomita?
are doing it and you're just like, fuck it, let's just go.
There's all kinds of things you can do, but it's mind over matter.
Yeah.
You can do anything you want if you really put your mind to it.
I put it in the chat. I did the complete Tony Robbins Mastery University way back in the 70s. And in the Life Mastery, the first firewalk is just a small one and like 7 feet, but in Life Mastery, it's like over 40 feet. So I've done that twice. It's like
Wow, that's incredible.
amazing.
And
At least
I see G's done it too. I see G's done it too. Wow. Tony, you got another question for Stephen?
Yeah, I want to get into CRM Refresh.
Yeah, tell us
Sure.
about that.
Sure. And that's awesome, by the way. Congrats, Nomita. Master University is amazing. I was the only idiot who signed up for that, went all the way to Fiji, didn't realize that, the first part of that is like like a 4 to 6 day fast or something. I don't remember how many days it was. And I thought to myself, what the hell did I just do? I'm at a beautiful resort. For those of you who don't know, Tony's got a resort called Namale in Fiji. It's absolutely gorgeous. But it wasn't gorgeous when you haven't eaten for 4 days. And it just was one of those things where I'm thinking like, man, this guy's got it figured out. Like, you pay to go to his place, stay at his place. He doesn't feed you. You jump around for a little while. Like, this is a great gig. What a business model. But anyway, so I digress. So CRM Refresh. CRM Refresh really just came out of the fact that, I'd made a lot of promises to a lot of agents over the years that if they came to Compass, like I see Tori Rimlinger, I think, is on this call. Are you on this call, Tori?
He is.
All right.
I am. Love you, Stephen. Wouldn't be here without you.
Love you too, Tor. So for example, I called up Tori probably about 8,000 times, and said, that I really would love you to be at Compass. And she said, who is this? But anyway, so I called her up and said be at Compass, and really, the net of it was your business is going to grow. You're going to get, efficiencies in the technology and all those things. And for a while, I think, again, just one man's opinion, but I think that was the case. And this is, again, not to point a finger.
100%.
Thank you, Tori. And so when and it's all kind of interrelated, but when Compass had to make some cutbacks, right? You had COVID, then you had sort of 2022. They had made some changes. I was kind of finding, as I was speaking to some of my, friends at Compass, that the service model was a little different. And a lot of the people that I had brought on to Compass weren't getting the same type of support that they were used to. There's still plenty of support out there, right? So this isn't me being critical, but they weren't getting the same type of support and needed a little bit of a different type of, I'm trying to be kind here, different type of support of how they want to be supported by Compass. So what CRM Refresh aims to do is ultimately set up your Compass CRM and your Compass system so that everything is pretty much like 1 or 2 clicks away. And the thesis behind it is that Compass agents will use the technology more and get more from it if it is set up properly the first time. And if they have the resources to, should it go a little bit left of center and get a little messy, that we can clean it back up and put it back in working order. And so that's what we do. So we have 3 different, and not here to sell you anything, but we have 3 different offerings. And the first one is we do a total overhaul of your CRM, right? So grouping, tagging, action plans, making sure that everybody, you know, if you've got people in ungroup, we take care of those. If you've got a bunch of realtor addresses where they're in the right group, and if you've got a bunch of info apps and things you don't really need, those get removed. So we take care of all that. And then the other level is we do that, plus we handle all your marketing. And the one on top of that is we do that, handle all your marketing, and then start working with your likely to sells, because that's another area that I'm seeing that Compass is really providing to agents, but a lot of agents aren't fully maximizing. And I think that, again, just like everything at Compass, it's all there for us, but there may have been just a little bit of a hiccup in the communication of how to really use the likely to sells. And so that's just been my experience, and so far it's been a lot of fun. We've gotten, you know, some great feedback, and, you know, really just have some amazing partners that we're working with, and they're enjoying it and we're enjoying it, and so it's a win.
Thank you. I think we lost Tanya. Hopefully she'll jump back on. The so we put in the chat Stephen's CRM Refresh website for you guys to go check that out. Oh, she's back. Okay, good. The brains in this operation is back. The brains and the beauty. Okay.
Sorry about that.
I'm
Deb
looking
had
at,
a question of
yeah.
how do we do that without the agent, and the answer is we cannot. So this is definitely a collaborative process, but it's intelligently collaborative. At least that's what we hope for. And what I mean by that is we're doing a lot of the things ahead of time, ahead of meeting with you, to set ourselves up so that we can be efficient. What does that really mean? That means that we're looking at, you know, your MLS, we're looking at your business trackers, we're making sure that anything that we can actually visibly see ahead of time. I don't know if you guys are using the saved filter functionality that was rolled out not too long ago, but we're building those for you, so we know kind of what data you're missing, what data you have, and all that kind of good stuff. And to your point, we have no idea who John and Jenny Smith are. No idea, right? But if we sit together, and usually it's going to take, probably, depending on your CRM, I've seen some scary ones, but for most of us, it's going to take somewhere between 2 to 4 hours of your time over the course of a month. And really, you know, what we're going to learn from you is, one, you know, who are your people, and really what do you plan to do for them, right? As a service offering, as a brand promise, over the course of a year, and that's how we build out sort of those tags and those action plans. But great question. Tanya has at least 5,000 in her CRM.
Yeah.
You know what? Honestly, not that this is all about you know, a competition. Well, today, Junior. But I need more coffee. But I've seen close to 40,000 contacts. So 5,000 would be nice.
That was something I did, you know, about 2 years ago when we were going through Common Core. Who remembers a Common Core? Geez, in Compass. And I went through and I cleaned it all up, and and it was a lot, and I tagged it, but I said, I'm going to do like 15 or 20 every day. And it took a while, but it's tough to clean it up and tag them. And then you can actually use it. But,
and then once you do it, then, you know, you forget about it for a while, and suddenly you have a few hundred more you got to go in there.
I know, like,
figure out.
Exactly. It's tough. So check out Stephen's website. I've got it in the chat. So Stephen, looking at your life, what's a big obstacle that you've hit in the past, even as a kid, and how did you overcome that?
I ran into traffic this morning. And I really didn't do anything about it. I waited for the lights to turn green, and then I just kept on going.
Well done. Well done.
No, I don't have a really good answer for you, and I wish I did. I would say that I've been very blessed to have some really great friends in my life. And in moments of need, right, I think where I want to continue to lean into is being able to, while I struggle with ego and I struggle with pride, being able to reach out to those people and kind of let them know what's going on in my world and letting them help me, right? I think that's always been a struggle of mine. And I know a lot of others potentially. It was just asking for help when you need it. And the funny part about that is usually, I'm the first person, and I don't say this to boast, but like, I'm the first person to jump in if you need help. Like, I'm happy to help others, but I struggle to ask for help on my own. And so I see some heads nodding, so I know I'm not alone. But yeah, I think that's just something that comes with time, and it comes with maturity, and really it's just fear, right? Because the fear that I'm going to be judged, or that I'm not enough, or that, people won't love me if they know that I need something from them. Which you find out if you've got the right friends, in my opinion, that really isn't the case. It's just something that we cooked up in our own heads. So I don't have a specific one for you, but that's kind of the first thing that came to mind.
There's a couple
Stephen,
questions.
where do you get your inspiration? How do you start your day every morning? I know that when we talked about you coming on, I said, we get up at, some of us get on at 5:30. Feel free to come in early. And you said you're in the office at 5:30. So give us like a little rundown. Like, how do you start your day? Where do you find your inspiration from? Where do you start?
So it's interesting. I try, and it doesn't always work, but I try to to not talk about shit I don't know anything about. Excuse my French. And that's been a lifelong lesson, because I've always been a good imitator. If you have a Scottish accent, I immediately have a Scottish accent, and anybody who's around me can't stand me because they're like, dude, you're from Philly. I don't know what you're doing with that accent. I can't help it. It's just something that I pick up and try to make people feel comfortable if I'm around them, right? And so it's very monkey see, monkey do. And so I find it interesting that when I worked with Tony, I would often be in rooms, and I'd come in and I'd have a ton of energy, and I'd be like, you can do it, let's go. And I'd have people that were like, kid, life hasn't hit you in the face yet. That's great that you have a lot of energy, but you're 25. Like, I had a lot of energy at 25 too, And so what I've noticed is that as you get older, your life gets richer, right? You get married, you have family. And so for me, I'm realizing now, and I don't even have any children yet that I'm aware of. But I'm realizing now, I got Shannon on that one. He thought that was funny. But in any event, I'm realizing now, as I'm about to get married, and as we've got our little French bulldog, and I look to the future and what I want out of life. Like those are the areas that you kind of draw your inspiration from. So it kind of becomes easy in some ways, because you do it because you have to. I was, I don't know how much you want to know, but I mean, I was someone who was very lucky to grow up with a father who was a podiatrist, and we certainly weren't rich, but like I had a phenomenal upbringing, and was very fortunate to have a lot of things. And you sort of, when you're in that spot, kind of like a lukewarmish position, you find it hard sometimes, I think, to generate that motivation, because there's no real stimulus, right? You have to kind of create your own stimulus. And I think when that safety net kind of gets pulled from you, desperation is a phenomenal motivator. And I think that when you realize that, like, it's all on you no matter what, and I think no matter where you come from and your background and what your parents have and what their grandparents left you or whatever, it's always all on us. And so when we realize that, I think that's really all the motivation that we need. I don't know. That was a long-winded answer, but that's kind of where mine comes from.
Thank you. Patrick.
That's great. Thank you.
You've got your hand raised. You want to unmute now? You have a question for Stephen?
There's a couple questions in the chat too, John.
Yeah.
John, I'm actually gardening while I'm listening to this. So apparently my pocket raised my hand.
That was a whoopsies.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
You're
I know
welcome.
Betty had a question, and I think Deb had a question I saw pop up briefly.
So Betty's question was, does the CRM Refresh integrate with Outlook? I think it does.
Yeah. As far as scraping data, I'm not so sure that it does, because everything's through G Suite. But was that what the question was?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Jeannie, you've got a question. When you want to unmute Jeannie about the database?
Hey, Stephen, thanks for being here. Yes, I had a question. So if we have do we need a separate database? Because right now my CRM is my database. So is it recommended we have something separate that has all the other stuff, and then our CRM is more just solid business basis?
No, I think the functionality is there in the Compass CRM that you can have everything that you need in there. I don't think you have to have everything that you need in there. I mean, I think you can use the CRM for your business, and as long as you have everything you need for your business in that CRM, then all will be well. But I think, if I'm understanding your question correctly, I don't think you need to have two separate things. I think you can just get the critical mass of your sphere of influence and your past clients into your Compass CRM and use that to stay in touch with folks.
Because I have a lot of my vendors in my CRM, and the vendors don't necessarily, well, some refer business, but not everybody does. But you have 5 locksmiths, 4 plumbers. And so if you have all of these people, I mean, you know, when we're supposed to be emptying our CRM, what do we do with those?
Sure. So, I mean, there's a group called vendors. So I would just group them in vendors, and then, you know, obviously if you use them, keep them. And if you don't use them or don't stand by their work, then you can archive them.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. Nice to meet you, Jeannie.
Deborah, you had a question? Solvenson? Okay. I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Stephen, is there a book or a movie that you just go, man, that inspires me, and that just gets you fired up and you go back to? I mean, I've got a couple books that are in my rotation every couple of years, but is there a movie or a book that it's your book and it inspires you?
Yeah, there's a couple. So I would say a book that just helps me, or that helped me sort of answer some of my biggest questions, and I thought in the most clear and concise way, was a book called Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. If anyone's ever read that, so yeah, just a wonderful read. And so that's not necessarily a book that inspires me, but it is definitely one of those key books that's just I constantly glance at and look through. Movies, I have been I cannot tell you how many times that my fiance's eyes have rolled when she's walked in the house and seen Braveheart on the TV. She's like, again, really? and that Good Will Hunting. So you know, when I heard Marco's accent, I could listen to that all day.
It's funny because Sky Michaels, Braveheart is in his top 3. That and Dumb and Dumber. He goes from Dumb and Dumber to Braveheart.
we are cut from the same cloth, Sky and I, if I could be so bold. I just think he has better hair.
Mavis, you want to unmute? You got your hand raised.
John, can I ask the question?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, it took me a minute to
Mavis.
find my mute.
Yeah.
What was the feature you two referred to? I thought you said something stop, the new feature.
Oh,
with the CRM.
Stacked filters. So and saved filters. So now Compass gives you the ability to say, okay, first show me everybody that's in my business tracker, right?
But not
Yeah. And then show me the completed business tracker files, and then show me the buyers that were completed, and then show me the ones that are all of those things and still missing the home anniversary date, so they won't come up in my home anniversary action plan. You can do all that and save it so that it's just one click of a button at the top of your contacts.
Okay, somebody's gonna have to tell me where to start with that. Thank you, guys.
Well, reach out to me. I mean, anybody on
Okay.
the call, if you've got questions, even if it's just a simple, where do I find this? Happy to help.
Tanya and I will be sending out an email to everyone in the next few hours with all of Stephen's links and all of that for you. Mavis, you want to unmute? You got a question?
Okay, so I am the person who embarrassingly has never used a CRM a day in their life. So I got to Compass, I hit some buttons on my phone, put a whole bunch of stuff in there, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. I am so not there because I don't know. Musa says she still loves me.
Yeah, you're definitely not alone. Davis. You're not alone. You're just the one brave enough to come forward. You're all good.
So my whole thing is like, how many hours are you going to spend with me to make me CRM worthy? I just don't know if you have enough hours in your life.
Listen, you may be right. I may be crazy. All right. No, I think so every time I meet with somebody and they're considering doing a CRM refresh, I always ask them kind of the same question, like, and I'm going to try to do my best. How do you like them apples for Joanne over here? But really just, what are you going to use it for? So, and at the end of the day, if you're not going to use it,
yeah, well,
no sense in paying for it. No sense. I mean, you're paying for it anyway through your commissions. That's kind of how that works. And so for me, I think like if you're going to pay for it anyway, you might as well use it. But I'm certainly not here to try to convert anybody and philosophically into what they want to do. What I would say though is that there is, Mavis, I think there's value though in just keeping it simple and having reminders that hold you accountable to the things that have always worked for you and will continue to work for you. And maybe just only put those things in there that you have overlooked, right? Because I imagine whether you're using a CRM or not, you're clearly staying in touch with people, you're clearly growing your businesses. Like you have a system, it's just different than the CRM system, right? And so really just looking at the CRM is kind of like your partner or your buddy to say, okay, you remember the stuff that I tend to forget, and then remind me, and I'll remember the stuff that I always remember anyway. And between the two of us, we'll be stronger.
Right. Thank you.
once again, how many hours do we get?
So yeah, and that's kind of the other thing too, guys, which is really interesting. I've found, and John, I'm glad we didn't really touch on this because I've also been a coach for a while, and I think that kind of got thrown in there because of Tony Robbins. People just started asking me to coach them. I kind of was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but sure. And that went on for years. And that, I guess, kind of just became, that's how I ended up coaching with Chirag Shah for a little while. And so, I think what's interesting is in real estate, a lot of us have invested in coaching, and coaching generally comes down to hours, right? And that's okay. I'm not saying anything bad about that. We don't really look at it that way. So one, we're going to do it for you. Yes, you're going to collaborate. We don't know who John and Jenny Smith are, but this service is one where we're not really going to say, here are the best practices, and you didn't do what you said you were going to. Like we're literally just going to actually go in there and do it for you. And then the other thing is we'll take as long as it takes, frankly. And so that's why, and I didn't mention this before, all of our clients have us from a customer service level for an entire year. And so if you've got questions, you want to hop on and figure out where something goes or whatever, we really offer two things always, which is we can schedule time and show you, or we can just hop into your CRM and do it.
That's awesome. That sound helpful, Mavis?
Yeah, that sounds helpful. I understand that somebody from CRM Refresh will be moving in with me.
Whatever works. You heard him say it.
It depends. Where do you live, Mavis? We can talk about it. We can talk about
Oh, that's great. Well, are there any other questions in the chat, John?
No, I think we're kind of getting down on our time.
Oh, we definitely are. I just saw.
Yeah, you've got some questions. We'd like to end it. Tanya, you want to go with those?
Yeah, so we like to end the call with just some fun questions. I definitely have one. You said about to get married. When's the big day?
September 17th, 2025. We are getting married right outside of Florence.
Oh,
nice.
Can't wait to get married.
Congratulations.
I just can't wait. Since you're going to be living with me anyway, I'm sure.
I was going to say, Mavis, please bring your laptop so we can work on your CRM.
Yeah, that's what I figured you would want to do on your wedding night. I mean, what else is there to do, really?
Yeah.
I've been to a wedding outside of Florence years
Congratulations.
ago. It is absolutely gorgeous. You're gonna have a great time.
Amazing. And was it a bulldog? Bulldog's name?
Yeah, French bulldog. For anyone who has one or has been around one, I don't know if they qualify as dogs. I grew up with boxers my whole life, and I'm a big dog guy. And dogs to me are, they lay by your bed when you're sick. They defend you. They hear somebody walking down the street. They look through the wall and know exactly where that person is. My dog doesn't do any of those things. If he hears something, he hides behind me. If I'm not feeling well, he still wants to play. It doesn't really matter how I feel. So I don't know that he hears a noise over here and he looks over there. Like he's basically a moving stuffed animal for my fiance. Oh, there we go. Is that an Australian Shepherd, Robert? Looks like beautiful. So French bulldog, but they are cute. And I've never been more harassed in my life in any public setting than when walking around with that French bulldog.
That sounds about right. Yep.
Okay, Tanya, why don't you hit your rapid fire questions?
Well, that was them.
Yeah,
I do have one. Favorite meal of the day?
Favorite meal of the day? Oh man, that depends on the day. I don't know. I love breakfast. Good cup of coffee, couple eggs, some bacon, like just works. I mean, now if mom's making her gravy, I got a little bit of Italian in me. Philadelphia, love that too. But yeah, eggs and bacon will do, I'll say.
Favorite ice cream?
I'm not a big sweets guy. I love salt. So like, don't put a thing of pretzels around me or charcuterie or even just a hoagie. I'll eat it, right? But sweets not so much. If I had to pick one, I'd say like Rocky Road ice cream.
Okay.
I'm definitely more of a charcuterie girl myself.
Oh,
agreed.
Know that. Jeez.
Also, I just want to say very quickly, thank you guys. I'm so sorry that I've bored you for the last hour, but thank you for your attention. I'm noticing really quickly how uncomfortable I am. And I'm realizing it's because every time I get on a call, which is pretty much like all day long, I'm the one asking the questions. And so I'm literally sitting here being like, well, I have questions, and I'm not able to ask them. So there you go.
What questions do you have?
Well, we have to be here for another 6 hours. All right. So starting from the top of my screen.
All right,
Mavis,
last question. Last question. What are you going to do right after this call?
Right after this call, we have a morning meeting with my team. So I work with 3 other financial advisors, and each morning we go over, news in the market, what we've got for the day as far as clients coming in, investments that we're making, and so that will be here in about 6 minutes. And then I've got client meetings, and I'm actually sponsoring a fellow Compass agent, Jody Clegg. She has if you guys know her, she has a client appreciation party later today, and so I'm doing that. In between that, Shana Tova, to all of my fellow members of the tribe, I'm going to go and go to shul for about an hour and a half at 10. And then I got a lunch meeting at 12:30. So I don't know if that really makes me very devout, but hey, it is what it is. So that's that.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. We had fun. I hope you did too.
So appreciate it.